What's going on, guys? JSGC here, and we are here for another Manchester City video. Today we're going to be doing another Manchester City transfer update. If you didn't know, I am rolling out daily Manchester City transfer updates throughout the whole of January for you guys to stay up to date with here on YouTube with all the latest Manchester City transfer news every single day. So do subscribe if you haven't already. It is free to subscribe. Also, don't forget social media links, including my Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. The links to them are in the description. Also, don't forget email in the description too if you want to hit me up for any sponsorship for any videos or any general business inquiries. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up. 300 likes is the aim. Do let me know your thoughts as well in the comments below. So we've got no contract news, we've got no outs news, which means we're not speaking about Calvin Phillips today. Hooray! Instead, we're going to go on to the ins. We've got two big stories. First player I want to speak about is a player we've already spoken about in this window. Comes in the form of an update on Pedro Porro. Now, the Football Insider has said that Pep Guardiola, he's very much driving the Pedro Porro train right now. He likes Pedro Porro. He likes how he plays. He's been impressed with his performances whilst he's been at Tottenham Hotspur. In particular, impressed with his performances so far this season. So much so that apparently Pep Guardiola has told Manchester City he thinks that Pedro Porro would make the ideal long-term replacement for Kyle Walker at the club. Now, Spurs more than likely going to be asking for a big fee for Pedro Porro in the summer. They're not going to want to sell their top valuable assets to another Premier League rival. Now, the one thing to keep an eye on is the offer of Champions League football. If Manchester City make the Champions League football for next season, so finishing either in the top 4 or top 5, depending on performances of the English clubs in Europe this season, so it could be top 5 that make Champions League football for next season, or Manchester City win the Champions League and we get into the Champions League that way. What I'm getting at is if Manchester City can offer Champions League football to Pedro Porro and Tottenham Hotspur cannot, then that could be Manchester City's little incentive to have Pedro Porro want to leave Spurs to join Manchester City instead. So we'll see what happens with regards to that. Considering Pedro Porro was a player for Manchester City and was part of the City football group as well. It's a player that Manchester City let go for part of the CFG to make profit on upon the sale of him playing for Girona and heading to Sporting Club de Portugal. Since that move happened, Manchester City have no say on what happens with Pedro Porro, so it would be a transfer that Manchester City have to negotiate themselves, that they do have to get sorted to get him back to Manchester City and part of the City football group as well. As I said, I'm expecting Spurs to be asking for a lot of money. Now, Nacional have said that Tottenham Hotspur, they're looking in the summer for over 60 million euros. We're looking at over 50 million pounds. I think roughly translates to around 52 to 53 million pounds is the fee that we're looking at as the initial fee being put out there by Nacional, one of the sources that's reporting on this story. So the fact that there's a couple of sources repeating the same thing, that Manchester City are interested in Pedro Porro, is telling me one of two things could be happening here. Either Manchester City are indeed interested in signing Pedro Porro, or Pedro Porro is either looking for more money from Tottenham Hotspur or is looking to actively seek a move away from Spurs in the summer and using Manchester City as a bargaining tool to try and get more money from somebody else. Now, Manchester City will be interested in right-sided defenders, long-term Kyle Walker replacements. I don't think it's a priority position for Manchester City, but that doesn't stop Manchester City choosing to address them issues. We saw it with Joško Gvardiol last summer. Centre-backs wasn't a priority position for Manchester City, but Man City saw that there was availability of a player that they liked and wanted and went out there and made it happen. So Pedro Porro is a player that they see long-term being successful at Manchester City. If he is available for the right price and Man City have the money to make it happen, why wouldn't you go and make it happen? There's space in the squad, so one for me to keep my eyes and ears open for, and I find it interesting that this isn't the first report now that we're getting of Pedro Porro, and these rumours don't seem to be going away. Anyway, moving on to the final transfer, and this is very interesting. Douglas Luiz. Now, another player that Pep is keen on, apparently, according to Nacional, is Douglas Luiz over at Aston Villa, and they report saying that Pep Guardiola hasn't forgotten about Douglas Luiz. He's been impressed with his performances whilst he's been at Aston Villa, in particular impressed with his performances so far this season. Again, going back to what I just said with Tottenham Hotspur and the ability to offer Champions League football, it's very appealing. Should Tottenham Hotspur or Aston Villa secure Champions League football for next season, we will struggle to sign Pedro Porro and we will struggle to sign Douglas Luiz. But if they don't get into the Champions League and Manchester City do, then all of a sudden these transfers, as far as I'm concerned, become very, very doable. Now, Manchester City, they need midfield reinforcement, so a move for Douglas Luiz would make perfect sense, in particular if Manchester City managed to secure a permanent transfer for Calvin Phillips away from the club. I personally, my own opinion here, I would love Douglas Luiz back at Manchester City, but it is a transfer, like Pedro Porro, that Manchester City would now need to negotiate. We did have a buyback clause. We chose not to take that buyback option. Since then, that buyback option has ran out. Manchester City no longer have a buyback option for Douglas Luiz. So we would need to sit down, speak with Aston Villa and negotiate the transfer. Villa drive a pretty hard bargain. We saw it with Jack Grealish. They weren't budging on his release clause. I don't know if Douglas Luiz has got a release clause, but I can't imagine one of Aston Villa's best players in Douglas Luiz is going to come cheap. So how much is he for sale for? How much are Manchester City prepared to pay for him? Does Douglas Luiz want to leave Aston Villa to come to Manchester City? Lots of little hurdles involved in this, but my own personal opinion on this, as I said, I love Douglas Luiz at the club. I think Pedro Porro would be a good move for Manchester City as well. So two very interesting stories that are developing. As soon as I get the latest, of course, I will keep you guys up to date with that. So do stick around. Make sure you have subscribed. Press that red button, press the bell, and put your push notifications on. It is free to subscribe. I'm on that push now to 34,000 subscribers. Less than 700 subs away. It's free to subscribe. So do subscribe if you haven't already. Also, don't forget social media links. They're in the description if you want to go and follow me on my Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. Email also in the description too if you want to hit me up for any sponsorships for any videos or any general business inquiries. Also, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. 300 likes is the aim. And do get your thoughts as well in the comments below. Pedro Porro, Douglas Luiz, are you keen? Let me know in the comments below. And I'll see you guys again religiously again tomorrow for another Manchester City transfer update. It is the weekend. It does tend to be a bit slow when it comes to transfer news, but if there is content and a story for me to speak about, then of course I will deliver it to you every single day here on YouTube. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope everyone has a fantastic weekend, and I do hope everybody has a great day as well. So I've been JSGC. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope everyone is safe and well. Peace. Ciao for now.